welcome back to Sweet Yellow House. And oh my goodness, it has been a week. If you want that story, go over to my other channel. It's all over there. So I have loaded a bunch of stuff up on my website if you're interested in going to check that out. So we're going to get started with project 1. And this is a large candle holder, I think, and a hurricane cover. Both of these I got at the Goodwill, maybe. I know I got the hurricane there. No, the candle holder I got from my dad. So I just cleaned both of those off, and I'm gonna grab this Lost Garden in the IOD transfers, and this is from their spring release, and I just gave that glass a really good cleaning, and I'm gonna use those transfers on this glass hurricane. So this has a lot of like curves and ups and downs, the shape of it, and I knew it was going to be quite difficult to get those transfers to stay, stay on there without a bunch of wrinkles. So what I did was I actually selected the ones I wanted, and then I cut them into a lot of smaller pieces and just made sure that I lined those up when I put them onto the glass. So there you see me just having time putting those little pieces on, making sure that everything was kind of pushed down on there. I had this little nest that I had made a couple of weeks ago, so I just put that in the bottom of that. And then I had these, I think they're cherry blossom branches, so I got these at the Goodwill, and I've had them kind of floating around my house for a little while now. So I just decided to cut those apart, and to I ended up glue gunning those into the nest so they kind of stood up there. And then once I got those kind of where I wanted them, and I did leave them pretty long, then I just kind of nestled that hurricane around that. I applied a little bird to the branches, as you can see there, and that's how that came out. It looks so springy and cute, and I am gonna keep this. I love it, and it just looks like it could stay out all year round. So I love the little bird, I love the little nest at the bottom, and then what those transfers add to that glass is beautiful. And if you wanted to, you could totally put a candle in this instead of the little faux flowers and stuff. So project 2 is this white ceramic swan that I got, and I'm gonna start off, I got that off of Facebook Marketplace. So I'm gonna start off with the Amy Howard sizing for leafing, and I'm just gonna add that all over this little swan that it has kind of like a frosty type feel, but it is a white ceramic. It's not slick at all. So I just kind of made sure that I covered the whole thing, and I'm going to dry that with my heat gun. Once I have all that dry, I am going to start applying this gold leafing to that swan, making sure that I got every bit of that covered. So I'm just going to kind of lay it on in large sheets, and then just kind of pressing that down with a soft brush. So you can see there, I'm just laying it down in the larger sheets and just using my hand to kind of push that leafing down into all of that detail. This was a little bit of a process, so if you're going to do something like this, just know you're going to be in it for a little bit of a long haul. I see people doing whole pieces of furniture, and I can't even imagine. So this took me some time, so I can't imagine a bigger piece and how long that would take, but just know it's all worth it. It came out beautifully. I just love it. I didn't do the inside of that or the whole bottom because I didn't want it to kind of scrape off there. So once I got that all finished up, I'm taking my sweet Pickens oil wax in dark, and I'm giving that a good shake to make sure all of the pigments in there mix around with that. And I'm going to pour some of that out in a cup, and just using a soft cotton cloth, I'm going to add that to the swan. Now, putting it over the gold, it helps with two things. Number one is it's helping me kind of seal that in for protection, but it's also kind of antiquing that gold so it's not so bright. It's not a major antiquing. It just kind of takes that gold back just a smidge so you get a little bit of that antique look to it. So I just apply that, and then I wipe it back with that cloth. I'm getting this Great Stuff window and door filler, and I'm going to use that to put on the inside. Now, my problem with this is I didn't shake it very well, so it wasn't coming out that well, but I think it kind of saved me in the end. If you're going to do this, do not fill that thing up, because as it sits, it will expand, as you can see coming up here. I only filled it halfway, but it did expand almost to the top there. So I let that dry overnight just to make sure that everything was dry and secure there. And what I'm going to make with this is a little cute pincushion. This reminds me back in the old Hollywood days where you had those beautiful costume makers and, you know, everything was like glitz and glamour. And that's what this reminds me of. I just think it's so beautiful. So I'm just going to hot glue some kind of stuffing in there to make sure that I'm covering up that hard foam. And then over that, I'm adding this cotton, I think it's like quilting batting. So I'm just cutting a piece out of that. And both of these are just kind of things I had laying around. And so I'm just going to use my glue gun, my finger, and something to kind of push that down around, cutting off any excess as I go. So I'm just trimming it so I can get it down in there, and then carefully using my glue gun. I don't want a bunch of glue gobs everywhere. I'm just kind of actually putting little dots down and then tacking it down in place. I'm using this little tool here because I got tired of burning my fingers. So I'm just tucking it in so that there's not a lot of folds and stuff. Everything looks pretty smooth. Now I have this leftover fabric. I got this from Joann's, I think. I'm just cutting a piece out. This is a leftover. I made curtains for my bedroom, so I just had a little piece left over. So I'm just going to use that. And again, as I did with that quilt batting, I just cut it to a piece, size piece that I think it would fit, and then as I kind of put it in, measure it, and just trimming off any excess as I go. Again, I'm not putting a bunch of glue everywhere. I'm just kind of putting a little bit of glue there and then tacking it kind of into place to get it where I want. The fit was pretty snug, so I wasn't really worried about it coming undone. And so if I wanted to change it over time, my original thought was that I would put velvet over this, but I couldn't find any velvet that wasn't like completely, stretchy. It just seemed like all the velvet out there was just stretched, uncontrollably. So I just decided to use a nice piece of really hefty fabric that I had, and this is what I came up with. So that was pretty much it. It wasn't really that hard. The foam took up most of the time. And then I grabbed these cute little pins. They're actually lapel pins from Hobby Lobby, and they have them there in kind of like their bridal section. Project 3 is this little kind of door basket that I've had for a while. I think I've actually had this in my room, in my studio for a couple of years. So I'm going to use this home decor wood tin. It's by Folk Art. I thought it was the antiquing wax and I just picked it up by mistake, but I'm going to try it on this basket anyway. So just using a brush, I'm just brushing that onto the basket and then wiping it back as I go. I like the basket, but I just wanted to bring that color down a little bit. It was just a little bright for me, and I tend to like the darker colored baskets. I grabbed my redesign by Prima Meadow Hair, I think this is called. It is a rabbit scene on there, and I'm just using my amazing casting resin, and I'm gonna use that and mold out the big rabbit there. I still am not a huge fan of this resin, but since that mold was on the bigger side, I felt like I could get away with using it without tearing my hair out. So once that sets up, it takes about 10 minutes. Then I just kind of pull that out while it's still soft. And then I just trim off any overpour that I have. Once it got stiff, then I grabbed my Empire Gold gilding wax. And I'm going to use that and apply that all over the rabbit using just a smaller type of soft brush. Once I have that all applied, I'm going to grab my DIY wax in the dark wax, and I'm going to apply that over the gold. I did let that gold sit on the rabbit for a few minutes just to make sure that it kind of had dried a little bit. And with that same brush, I'm just adding that dark wax on top of the rabbit, wiping it back, and then just kind of seeing where I need more, applying where I think I need it, and it just brings out all that detail. So of course we can't stop there. That little rabbit needs a cute little bow for its neck, so I just made a bow out of some lavender ribbon, and I'm just gonna make a bow and glue that to its neck. Just using hot glue, I'm just gonna apply hot glue to the back of that and stick that onto the rabbit. I have this little wreath that I've had for a while, and I just thought it would look really cute around the rabbit. And I'm going to use this fabric covered wire to kind of hold that onto the basket. But first I'm going to take out the lining of this. I didn't feel like I needed it because I'm not going to put anything, you know, liquidy in there, and so I didn't need it. So I just went ahead and removed it. I'm going to kind of elongate that wreath so it kind of has an oval shape, put it where I want it, and then using that wire, going through the basket and then putting my hand inside and twisting it on the inside to hold that down. That way, if I decided that I wanted to remove that, I could, and I didn't have to mess with any of that glue. So project 4 is this little mirror that I got. I believe I got this from Goodwill a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just going to kind of start off by removing everything. That's what I always like to do that. I like to remove the backing and the hardware and everything just to kind of get down to the bare bones of it. So that way I kind of can see what I'm working with, and I'm not getting influenced by all the other stuff that's on there. The back of that was kind of all glued together, so I had to kind of get that out of there and take the mirror out like all in one piece. So just looking through there, and kind of looking things over, you can see that there's a crack in the frame there and a kind of a big notch of that taken out. So now I'm just going to start trying to repair the things and take off anything extra that I feel like needs to come off. Using my finger sander, I'm just kind of sanding away that paper on the back. I'm just kind of giving it a look over. And I decide to use my Loctite super glue. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to repair that crack. So I'm just adding it in there and then just kind of pushing it together. I thought that this glue would be better to use only because it's really thin, and it would be it could kind of soak down into that crack because I couldn't like open it up enough to get something in between there. So once I have that all glued together, of course, there's still kind of like some uneven spots there. So just using air dry clay, I'm just taking my finger and running along that crack to kind of fill it in. And then I also used it to fill in that notch that was kind of broke out of the bottom. I let that clay dry overnight and then came back with just a sander, and I'm just kind of sanding off any rough edges and evening everything out. I grabbed my Renaissance Gold wax, and I felt like this was the closest color that I had to kind of the gold that was already on there. So I decided to grab this instead of my regular Empire Gold that I normally use. So just grabbing a small brush, I'm just going to use that brush and that Renaissance Gold and kind of blend everything together. I'm just kind of putting it around that frame just to kind of make it cohesive. I'm also using it to hide that clay, that white clay that I put on there, and that way it looks like it's supposed to be there and not like a big repair. Once I have that where I want, I'm grabbing my DIY dark wax and I'm gonna apply that not over the whole thing, but just kind of in certain areas where I applied that Renaissance Gold just to kind of bring it back a little bit. Mostly like in the corners or in the detail, and I'm applying that and then just wiping it back with a soft cloth. So I'm gonna grab my paint inlay and I think it's Delft Traditions Noir, and I think they came out with 2 of these, one in blue and one in this black. So I'm gonna pick out one that I want to do. And then I decided on this bigger picture here. So I'm gonna cut that out and just kind of trying to fit to see where I want to position that and what I'm going to kind of put it on. So I decide on this. It is one of the little you see right here, it's a 6x6 or something like that, and it's just a canvas that's from the dollar store. So I'm going to use my back of the cardboard that I took off the back as a template and just trace that on there where I need to cut it. And if you've ever tried to cut one of these suckers by hand, it's not, well, at least for me, it's not happening, not without some blood, sweat, and tears. So I took that over to my mini table saw and just cut through there. This is a really thick cardboard, and so this table saw just made it very easy to do. I know in my last video I had someone ask me if I felt like it was worth it. I really feel like if you're someone that struggles with having the hand strength to cut through stuff like this, it makes all that job so much easier. It makes cutting little pieces off of like wood spindles and things like that a lot easier. So the color that I grabbed here was called Crockery. It's DIY Cottage Colors. And I'm going to do 2 coats on this canvas, drying in between each coat with my heat gun. So once I have that initial base paint dry, I'm going to go in with a 3rd coat, applying that pretty heavy and making sure that I have full coverage everywhere and that paint is good and wet before I apply that inlay. So spritzing the inlay with some water, it just makes it a lot easier to work with. You don't get as many like wrinkles in that, and so I just pressed it down there, making sure that I have it exactly where I want it, and then using a soft cotton cloth, I'm just going back and pressing that down into that paint. I wet it a little more where I think that it's not kind of doing a good job to kind of lay into that paint. And once I have that and I'm satisfied with the way that it is, I grab my heat gun and start to dry that. This for me is a way that I've had very good success with getting a really vibrant transfer, as you can see here. So once it's dry, you just spritz it again and then slowly peel that back. If it starts to tug a little bit too much or tear your paper, just spritz it a little bit more and dampen that release sheet, and then just go about pulling it up carefully and slowly. And I got a really great image with this. I was really happy. So I'm just drying the excess water and paint on that and making sure that it's 100% dry. I'm going to grab the Pentart Decoupage varnish and glue, and I'm going to do a coat over this. Pretty good coat, and the reason that I'm doing this is because I'm going to do a crackle. I'm going to do a crackle treatment on this, and I don't want any of that inlay smearing on me. So I just go ahead and dry that with my heat gun, and I'm going to grab my component 1 in the fine line crackle varnish from Pentart, and I'm going to apply that first coat. This stuff is really thick, and I'm so glad that I applied that varnish before this, because this stuff is so thick. I definitely think I would have had some kind of smearing of that image. So I apply a good coat, making sure that I have full coverage, and then taking my heat gun, I'm gonna dry that. Once that's all dry, I'm gonna grab component 2 on the fine line crackle varnish, and I'm gonna apply that as well. So this is step 2, and I will say it's just as thick. This stuff is really thick. You have to work to kind of get it to spread well. So once I have that where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and dry that with my heat gun. And you can look at this and see that it's actually dry, you know, the cracks are coming in as you're drying it. So grabbing my DIY dark wax and a soft cloth, I'm going to actually use that and kind of smear that and push that wax into all of the cracks that happen there. I love the way that this came out. I can definitely see myself doing this treatment a lot in the next couple of projects that I'm going to do. And I think that this with the frame just came out gorgeous. So I'm going to apply the hanger, and I actually glued on. I'm showing you, I just used the hot glue to glue the backing back on. And I'm not really worried about covering up the back because I'm going to keep this for myself. I made it to go on my gallery wall in my entryway, and that's how this turned out. I love it. I can't say I love it enough. I love it. So project 5 is actually a couple of topiary small trees that I got from Goodwill a long time ago, and people are not really into topiaries very much anymore, but I'm a sucker. I love them, and anytime I see them, I'll pick them up. So I started out by pulling all that old yucky foliage out of the top there, and then I grabbed this, I don't know what is it, lamb's ear. I got this garland from His and Hers at Hobby Lobby, and I like to grab stuff like this when they have that at like 40 or 50% off, and they always do that every after April, after the wedding season is over, they say, and so they always put stuff like this on sale. So I'll grab the garlands and then I'll just tear them apart, and that's what I did with this. I just took it all apart, and I'm going to use my glue gun and actually start gluing those pieces into that foam ball. If I don't have a space, I'm just going to use the tip of my scissors and push that down in there to make a hole so that I can push that lamb's ear in there. So I just work away at this and fill both of those topiaries with the lamb's ear, making sure that I have a really full lush coverage on each of those. Looking at it, I felt like I needed to kind of beef up those pots, so I grabbed the vintage brooches from IOD. This is a new mold from their spring release, and I'm gonna make a couple of molds out of that. I'm going to use the one on the right hand side, and I'm going to make that out of my terracotta clay from Doss. I was hoping that by the time this dried that it would be the same color as the pot, but it still dried a lot darker. And I wasn't really happy with that, but I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make 2 of these, one for each pot, and apply those with some glue. So I'm going to apply that with my Tite Bond Quick and Thick glue, just putting that on my finger and then applying it to the back. I like to do that just to make sure that I don't have a bunch of extra glue oozing out everywhere. And so just using my finger and kind of feathering that out to the edge. Putting that on the little pot there, and then I'm going to use some tape to hold that in place. So I felt like this kind of needed more, so I grabbed my olive press IOD mold. This is my favorite mold. I will use it on 150,000 projects, and I have done it already, so I'm going to use it on this one. Just taking those two kind of images around the sides, a little kind of garland images, and I'm gonna make two of those, one for each pot, and I'm just gonna put those around the front of the top of that pot. So because this is pretty fragile, so instead of adding it to the mold, I'm just gonna go ahead and add it to the pot and then apply the mold to that. So I just kind of wrap it around the top there and tape that into place and let those dry overnight. So once I have that all done, I peel that tape off, and you can see it's not the same color. So I decided to grab my Dixie Belle terracotta paint. I add a little bit of water to that because it was getting a little bit thick for me, and I'm just gonna then proceed to paint both of those pots all over the molds and the pot alike, just so that they get a even color. I'm not being super careful with this because I am going to do a white wax treatment over it, but I just want to make sure that I do have most of it covered. So just drying that with my heat gun just to make sure that I have all of that paint dry. I just did one coat on these. I didn't go back and forth with it. It just didn't need it. And so I'm just making sure that paint's dry. I grab my bare white wax, and this is a very soft type of wax. And the reason, sometimes if I'm using a harder wax or something that's a little bit stiffer, it's because I don't have a whole lot of detail to get that wax into. But if I have fine detail, I tend to use a softer brush and a softer wax. It's just easier to get it into those fine details that you're trying to highlight. So I'm applying that and then wiping it back with a soft cloth. Once I have those where I want them, I'm just grabbing a handful of moss that matches the moss that's already on there, and I'm just going to beef that up a little bit using my hot glue gun, just applying that and then applying the moss over that. I'm actually going to use these in my Easter entryway display. And if you want to see how that turned out, I will be uploading that on my other channel in the next couple of days, and also using a lot of the other crafts that I've made over the last couple of weeks. I will be using that stuff as well. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I have loaded a lot of my stuff on my website, so if you're interested in any of those, go over there. They're all loaded up. So thank you so much, and I will see you soon.